Board. Let's do it. Here they come. I'm going to mute myself up too.
Good morning, everyone. Waiting for everybody's audios to kick in, cameras to kick in, etc., etc. And then we shall get underway. How are we all? Are we all okay?
Zara, I'm all okay. How do I change my name from IT Tegan? I've got it.
3 dots and rename.
Thank you.
No worries. Last time we did this, and I was the last roadshow that I was on. That was rather confusing, but hopefully I am logged in as myself today, which would be great. All right, so we've got a full house by the looks of things. Just making sure everybody's connecting comfortably with audio. Why am I echoing? I think we're fine again.
Oh,
all right.
Before you
All
start,
right.
this should be on.
You're on.
Yeah. Why is it never?
There we go. All right, let me just double check I'm not echoing now. Yeah, no, that's great. Fab. Okay. Nath, am I good to start?
Yeah, good. Just before we make a start, can I just ask everyone who's not participating?
I already have, don't worry, Calvin. Us autistic people, we know how to do this.
If everybody can just put themselves on mute through the presentation, that would just really help with background noise, so that the live captions can pick up what I'm saying, and so that those with hearing loss are able to read the presentation as we go. So that would be great. So thank you everyone for joining us this morning. So we are going to look at what is the best kept secret of central government. Oh, Ethan, you have control to mute everyone except present, but if you make me co-host, then you could mute everyone yourself from the other side.
Yeah, no worries. I'm muting everyone as they're coming in.
Thank you so much. Fabulous. All right, so I'll start that again for the recording just to make sure that everybody knows what we're here for, because that would really help. So good morning, everyone. My name is Sarah Flay. I'll tell you a little bit more about myself shortly, but we are here on this very fast-paced session to look at what is known as the best kept secret of central government for disabled people in the workplace, and that is called Access to Work. It is a government grant that I'm going to take you through, and today we're going to talk about it being how useful it can be for both the employer and the employee. So if I can get my slides to move, there we go. So my name, as I said, is Sarah Flay, and I'm the CEO of Legacy International Group and Accessibility Enterprise. Put my teeth in this morning. I was born with a neuromuscular condition, and at the age of 23, I was told I'd never work again because my condition wasn't compatible with the way that people in my industry at the times, which was administration, could enter the workplace. Fast forward now 17 years and a lot has changed for disabled people in the workplace. And I myself, I'm a user of the Access to Work scheme. Without access to work, I could not do the job that I do. Are we okay for sound? Lots of noise going on. Are we okay? Yeah, and I'll carry on. So currently I am the employer of 90 employees across 3 companies, and 75% of that workforce are currently or have in the past used the Access Work program. So I do know a little bit about what I'm talking about. I'm also, our organizations are Disability Confident Leader status, and for Welsh organisations, that is quite an accolade, as there are only 17 of us in Wales that are not central government or Welsh government organisations based in Wales that have that accolade. And I'm going to try and get my screen to move again. There we go. Okay. So who are we as an organisation? So the capacity that I'm talking to you in today is Legacy International Group, and we are working in partnership with Scope to deliver the VER today, the Virtual Employability Roadshow. As I've said, we're a disability confident leader, and I myself and as an organisation have been working with the Access to Work grant and the DWP for the last 5 years. Currently, those statistics to tell you we're handling 14 staff awards. That's on me, and that should have been updated. We're currently handling over 100 applications for Access to Work, and we have supported countless other people through the scheme. One of the things that I know firsthand and my team know really well is the pain and stress of negotiating the Access to Work system. So that's some of the information we're going to be sharing with you today. So before I start talking for both the employer and for the employee and for the self-employed as well, we're going to cover that as well in this presentation. One of the things I want you to keep in mind are two very important statistics. And that is that 52% of people that left work due to health reasons, long-term health, mental health and disability, 52% of people that were surveyed said that it was the lack of understanding by line managers that caused them to leave their job. Now, when someone leaves a job with a long-term health condition, the situation for both the company and the person can be life-changing. It's extremely difficult to lose a member of staff that may have acquired a disability over many years of working in your company, and that loss is felt by the company, when actually something like the Access to Work grant is the exact tool that that company needs in order to help that person remain in their job. When someone goes from working full time to maybe not being able to work again, then that has a massive impact upon their mental health, upon their income and upon their family situation. So that stat might seem like quite a small piece of information, but for the people actually that we're talking about, it can have a massive impact. And Scope did a survey on how getting people into work, what sort of it was looking like, what the landscape was looking like. And this was pre-COVID. So for every 100 people going into work, 120 people were leaving due to long-term health conditions and disability. So we were really facing an uphill battle with the situation of getting people into work with disabilities. So I think it's important for us to have a little bit of context in what we're talking about today. And so we need to talk first and foremost about the Equality Act. So the Equality Act came in 2010 and brought together over 120 pieces of government legislation around equality in the workplace and equality in everyday life. So it doesn't just include disabled people, it includes anyone that comes under the 9 protected characteristics. So that could be gender, it could be sexual orientation, it could be faith and religious belief, it could be pregnancy and maternity. So there's a number of different, there's 9 in total, and disability is one of them. And it is covered by the Equality Act. Now, the Equality Act has a piece of legislation built in that says anyone that identifies and discloses a disability, a long-term health condition, or a mental health condition in the workplace should be allocated reasonable adjustments in order for them to do their job in comparison to their peer that doesn't live with one of those conditions. So they're called reasonable adjustments, and reasonable adjustments are important because you have to do those as an employer before you can apply for Access to Work. So when a member of your staff receives an Access to Work award, the application asks, what has your employer done to reasonably adjust your job before Access to Work application starts? And I'm not going to go into depth on that today about what a reasonable adjustment is, but it literally is what it says on the tin. It's an adjustment that you can make, such as flexible working, working from home, ensuring that someone can work on a ground floor instead of up 5 flights of stairs if you have an office block. There's lots of little changes that you can make that can allow someone to adjust the way that they work in order for them to have the same opportunity as someone that doesn't live with the same condition as them. So this is what we're here for, and this is what you want to know. What is Access to Work? So Access to Work is classified as a publicly funded employment support program. So whenever you speak to Access to Work, they will tell you that this comes from public purse, which means it's government money. It's money that you and I as taxpayers pay into a system that then some of that money is used to build hospitals, some of that money is used to fund different government organizations, and some of that money is used for this actual grant, this program. So it's a program that, whilst it is very generous, it is often the business case that is the decision maker, because it's government money. It's money that everyone that works in the UK has paid in to support people, and for all of the right reasons. So the Access to Work grant is about providing practical and financial support. So it can help a disabled person. Now, it's not there to help the employer. The benefits to the employer will make themselves known shortly, but it is for a disabled person or a person living with a long-term health issue. It may be there to help someone stay in work. So that 52% we talked about that left because they were struggling in work, it's for those people. And it can also help people who live with these conditions and want to start their own business. And I'll explain a little bit more about that shortly, because there are some restrictions to that information. So first and foremost, let me address the employers that might be on the call this morning. Access to Work is not for you. It helps cover some of the costs and to provide the right level of support so that you have the confidence to employ disabled people. And in all of the work that I've done around employability, I would say that one of the biggest disadvantages for disabled people right now is that employers are not fully open to employing disabled people because they don't understand how to make the best of an opportunity for a disabled person. They're concerned about the legal implications, and they're concerned about how the impact upon the workplace would be in terms of costs and resources and sick leave and so many objections. So Access to Work can help you because it will help you to cover the costs of hiring disabled people, because ultimately there is a whole pool of people that are talented and resourced with skills that your organization needs. But there are some changes, and there are some bits of equipment and software and some human support that they need to be able to perform their job in exactly the same way that someone without their condition does. And this is what Access to Work is for. It will also help you to retain an employee that will acquire a condition during their working life. And most people are not born with disabilities or long-term health conditions. Health conditions typically are acquired during our working lives. So you will come across people that you will hire that have no conditions to begin with, and then may over time develop a health condition and would qualify for this support. And for myself and my own experience, I would not be able to work as a full-time CEO without the support of the Access to Work program. It means that as an employer, you're keeping your valuable skills that person has built over time in your company. It shows you that there is a value and a support that is in place within your organization. So your employees know you are a good employer when it comes to supporting the health needs and the disability needs of your staff. It means that it builds into your employment policies and your practices, and you yourself can then identify as being a disability confident employer just by interacting with some of these programs like Access to Work. So I think, as I've said, disability Access to Work program is for the disabled person and the person living with a health condition. It's not for the employer. So let's get into the real detail of who can apply for the award and what it looks like. So first and foremost, something that most employers don't know, and most people who live with disability and long-term health condition don't know, is that actually Access to Work can support you at the interview stage when you are looking for work. Because often, if you live with a condition that an interview would be a barrier for you, you are already at a disadvantage in the recruitment process because you're not getting the help and support you need. And Access to Work recognise this. And so there is a group of funding that is for the interviewee. Now, that might help you with things like communication and interpretation. So typically, the situation would be that someone who identifies as deaf, they would be able to get interpretation or someone to communicate, whether it's through British Sign Language or through other forms of communication, but they would be able to attend an interview with that support in place. And Access to Work will cover the costs an employer incurs if they have to bring in some help and support. It isn't just, it's typically known to be used for people that need BSL interpretation, but it's not just for that. If you have someone that struggles with communication because of autism, or they're on, the autistic spectrum across one of the many conditions, learning disability, or with a mental health condition, and they would struggle at interview to clearly articulate what needs to be said, then it can also cover the support of communication there. So it can help with someone to attend with you and help you to break down the conversation. I certainly hate interviews and I don't do very well at them, but that's got nothing to do with my disability. So then, this is the really important bit. This is the bit where it comes down to the person that we want to help and support. So as an employee or as a potential employee, here's some of the criteria that you have to meet. So you must be a resident and working in the UK, in Great Britain. So you cannot be living in France and then apply for Access to Work. It is only a British programme through the central government. You must have a disability or long-term health condition. Now, here's where it gets really interesting, because no one will ask you during the application process to prove your disability or long-term health condition. So it isn't like the personal independence payment process or the ESA or universal credit process. It is about you providing information, speaking to an advisor, and then a package of support put in place for you. So it's not about your diagnosis, it's about the condition you have and how that is impacting upon your work. So for many of us now that have been through COVID and might now be experiencing long COVID, if it is anticipated that your symptoms may last for at least 12 months, you could qualify for Access to Work programme. You could get the help and support through this grant. If you have a mental health condition and you need support in the workplace or support during the working week through a mentor or a counsellor, then this can help and be funded through the Access to Work programme. You must be over the age of 16 in order to receive the grant, and you must be in a form of paid employment or going into one or returning to one after a period of long-term sickness in order to qualify. Now, a paid job could be self-employment, where you run your own business. It could be an apprenticeship. It could be a work trial or work experience as designed and built by the DWP. And it could be a supported internship, although they are treated slightly differently in the process. So there are restrictions, as with anything that comes through as a government grant. So we're going to talk a little bit about those. So remember I said about the Equality Act of 2010 and how that was going to play an important part in this process. So your employer is legally obligated to make simple and straightforward adjustments for you before you even think about applying for the Access to Work. Now, this is where employers get nervous about employing disabled people, because I have heard them say things like, I'm not going to hire that person because I'd have to double the size of the doorway for them to use their wheelchair. Often this isn't the case, and very much the research shows that the average cost of adjusting a person's working environment is either free or the average cost is about £75. It isn't a massive amount of work that we're asking them to undertake. If an employer had to adjust a doorway or some kind of entrance to a building, it would be covered under the Access to Work programme. It would not be classified as a reasonable adjustment. These are simple changes to the working environment or the working process that allows a disabled person and a person with a long-term health condition to function in the workplace. Access to Work will not cover any support that the employer has already put in place. So if an employer has given you an assistant a few hours a week, and then that employer wants to claim that from the Access to Work programme, that wouldn't be accepted. So it has to be support that is new and starting at the time of the application. If you need equipment, and there is, oh my gosh, there are 101 pieces of equipment that we could talk about that Access to Work will cover. But if it is standard equipment for your job, then it is not covered under the Access to Work scheme. A member of staff would not be covered. But if that laptop is not powerful enough to run the software that is being provided through Access to Work, then they would include a laptop in the grant award as well. You can't get this grant unless you are in paid employment, unless it's a supported internship and they are treated differently. If it's for a voluntary piece of work, and we know that lots of disabled people enter work in a voluntary capacity, even to begin with, or as part of their way that they want to live their lives, Access to Work will not be covered there because it's looking at the paid remuneration that a member of staff gets in order to access the grant. There is a cost that can be incurred by employers, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, as typically if we are helping an organisation with Access to Work, we would make sure we break down the cost implications for them. The easiest way for me to explain this is that if it is a piece of equipment or a piece of software that a person is needing, then a company has to contribute a percentage of the cost of that equipment. If a person is receiving any other type of support through the grant, then it is absolutely free of charge to the employer. So what can you apply for? This is really important because when you apply for Access to Work, no one tells you what comes as part of the package, what is available. There is nothing out there that the DWP produce that tells you all of the ways that Access to Work can be used. It's very similar to direct payments, that you kind of have to make up your own ideas of what you need, or you have to go through a formal assessment. Now, I should say the formal assessment is currently run by RBLI, and they are fantastic. We have a wonderful working relationship with RBLI, and the majority of the time, their assessors really do know the best pieces of equipment and support to give you and to help you build that package. But I always think that it's really important that as disabled people and people who live with long-term health conditions, that we actually have control of this process, and we actually are educated and equipped to know what we could claim. So the grant has a value of just over 60,000 at present. Now that sounds like a lot of money, but if you are using a BSL interpreter 20 hours a week because your job is full of meetings, that soon gets absorbed in an hourly rate of say 100 to 120 pounds an hour. So it's not just equipment. Often the word out there on the street is that Access to Work is for equipment. It's not. It covers so many things. And I'm going to share with you at the end of the presentation exactly what it could cover by showing you examples of what we've managed to achieve with the programme. But it is currently worth over £60,000. So it might be that you need to pay for changes to equipment that you currently have. It might be that that equipment isn't what you need and you need a specialist piece of equipment. What do I mean by that? For example, every one of us that works at a desk in an office has a chair. But these standard chairs are not always suitable for people with long-term health conditions, such as muscular dystrophy or arthritis, fibromyalgia, and more complex conditions that require specialist chair setup. Access to Work can cover the cost of those chairs. And I don't think you'd be surprised to know that some of those chairs can cost up to £10,000, but they can make the difference between someone working full-time, pain-free in their job, or using a standard piece of equipment that can then mean they can no longer function at their desk. Access to Work will also help you with the travel costs of getting to work. Now, if you have a long-term health condition that may be a mental health condition and you are unable to use public transport, for example, you could have taxis to work. You could have a support worker driver where someone is employed in the hours that you need to commute to get you to your place of work. If you can use public transport, but it can cause you anxiety or uncertainty, or due to the way that you process the world that we live in, that you would find it difficult to find your way around a system, then you could get travel support in the form of a person to come with you to work and then meet you at the end of the day and literally travel back with you. It will also pay for a support worker or job coach in the workplace. So if you are entering work as a young person for the very first time, this can pay for you to have up to 880 hours of coaching, which is up to 9 months full support in order to help you settle into your new job. If you need assistance to be able to do things like carry cups of coffee, carry your laptops between meetings, take notes in meetings, then it will allow you to have a support worker. Some of these titles are not the most appealing, and it is something we're having a conversation with DWP about. But we have, one of the things I'll teach you in my hints and tips section is about using the correct language that DWP have built and not necessarily the language that we would like to use. It also provides, Access to Work has a fantastic mental health program, which allows you to get a mentor that you can have a session with once a week to help you with how your mental health is being affected by your work. So that's an online system where you can call in and get help and support from a mentor that's allocated to you on a weekly basis to get some support. One of the things that most employers don't know is that every time you take on a disabled person, you can apply to Access to Work. The person themselves can apply for training for their colleagues. Now, as an organisation, it's something that Accessibility Enterprise offers and allows the person to build a training with our team to be able to help your line managers and your colleagues to better understand your condition. Now, not all disabled people want to be able to communicate with their line managers all of the detail around their condition. And these trainings can be a fantastic way for companies to develop their knowledge and to build their awareness of how disability affects people in the workplace. As I've already said, it can help you with someone at job interview stage. And if you move jobs, Access to Work can actually help you with the cost of moving your equipment from one location to another. One of Access to Work's best kept secrets at the moment is condition management. This is a series of 1 hour sessions with a one-to-one specialist who can help you to better manage your condition based on how it's impacting you in the workplace. So what are my top tips for applying? This is the insider knowledge. This is not the stuff you're going to see on the Access to Work pages on the gov.uk website. I think one of the things you need to be really aware of is that Access to Work can be done in a matter of weeks, but it can also take months to get into place if it isn't carried out properly. How is it affected? Sometimes it is affected by an employer not responding when asked for information. It can be affected by the person themselves not communicating with Access to Work to be able to get the process started. It can be affected by having a bad advisor, and they are out there, who isn't able to help you get the support that you need because they don't understand your condition and often just use that 250-page guide that DWP produced for them to try and make decisions. So here's my top tips. Understand before you start the process what types of help and support there are. Now, everyone who has attended and registered for today's webinar is going to get a document sent through to you, which is our easy to understand guide on the Access to Work process. So in there, it will tell you everything you need to know about the types of help and support you could get. So you can start to build your own understanding of how this could work for you. It's really important that you get to grips with understanding what you might need, because often an understanding of your, it's really important that both the employer and the employee work this together. And I think it's a really great process for the employer to support the employee through this process. Ultimately, because it's government funding and it's public purse, it comes down to the business case. So if you want something and it's going to cost a lot of money, you just need to prove that to them why it's so important to you and how it will change your working situation. Access to Work does not like using third-party contacts. They very rarely stick to the rules on helping people by involving another person. But it's really important that you tell Access to Work if you're going to need someone else to help and support you through the process and who that person is, and that you give that person permission to work alongside you to get the right help and support. That might be a family member. It may be one of the Accessibility Enterprise team. It might be a support worker. It might be a disability employment advisor. There are lots of people that can help you. Often one of the ways that this process goes wrong is when people give their phone numbers during the application process. Access to Work have a system of contacting you 3 times via phone. And if you do not respond after the 3rd time, they will close your case. But the problem is that often the number is either unknown and comes up on your mobile as an unknown number, or comes up as a number you won't recognize. And often many of us will not reply to mobile calls of numbers we don't know. So when you apply for Access to Work, and if you do it yourself, always just give an email address to begin with and make sure you monitor that email address for the first piece of contact. They will then ask you for your phone number and they will tell you when they are going to contact you, which gives you far more chance of being successful in recognizing an unknown number and knowing that it's them that you need to speak to. If you struggle with anxiety or communication through phone, then you should ask them to make the call with someone with you to support you. And Accessibility Enterprise, our other company, can help you to do that through the process. So here's a very quick example. I'm just going to pick a few off these slides of support packages and how they've been used. So let's look at the case of Jay. And of course, due to GDPR, all of the information is now just, it's anonymous and we're just using initials to explain the situation. So Jay struggles with secondary effects of the treatment for cancer. One of their biggest challenges is that they struggle with fatigue, but also their situation has meant that they now have anxiety and on occasions can deal with low mood. So we got to know Jay through our application form process, which goes into lots of details about how life impacts the person. And they told us all of the information we needed. And so then we recognized that they needed human support. They also needed some equipment, and they needed some training within their organization. So first and foremost, we gave them a job aid, and we asked Access to Work to fund a job aid. Now, a job aid is someone that does up to 20% of your working hours as if it was you. So they actually do the bits that you struggle with in your job. So that person is then comes from an agency or comes from within the company that you might be working with. They may be able to employ someone for more hours to provide job aid, and that is paid for at an hourly rate as a type of human support. Then we put in place an ergonomic computer bundle. So because the workstation was causing some fatigue, we set up a specific chair and a type of desk that made the working day easier to handle. Because they had disclosed anxiety and low mood, we had put the mental health support recommendation into the package as well. And then we also arranged for them to have condition management sessions, those 12 sessions, one-to-one with person, working on how their work impacts them. And then we felt it was really important that their line managers and colleagues had training. So we recommended a 1.5 hour workshop for line managers and colleagues on fatigue, anxiety, low mood. Those were the specific things that were covered, as well as general disability awareness in the workplace. I'm just going to pick one more. So another J. So Jay is brand new to the workplace, has never worked before, has come from home education and was starting an apprenticeship. Now, Jay had been through a lot of severe mental health trauma, and so was entering the workplace really anxious, and a lot of things were going to impact upon Jay's ability to really undertake their apprenticeship. So we put in place 9 months of job coaching, and also felt that it was important for them to have mental health support. And I'm really pleased to report back that that has been a phenomenal success. And in the last 12 months, we have seen such fantastic results with Jay, who is now taking part in meetings, coming up with ideas, leading sessions when there's brainstorming to be done, contributing to the organization that they are in, because they've now gained confidence in the workplace. That was an absolute fly-through session of Access to Work. So now I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to allow the microphones and the chat to be opened up for any questions you might have. I should say right now that I can't discuss individual cases over this call, but what I can do is give you our support team's contact details, which I will put in the chat, and we'll come out to you with the email from this session as well. So if you have individual cases, it might be that you have been rejected for Access to Work. It might be that you have been in a position where you've never applied and don't know where to start. If it is about a specific situation, I can't answer it on this call unless we can be really quite vague about the details. You'll see that our webinar host for the day has literally jumped straight in. He's obviously decided that you've learnt loads from this session, and we would like you just to quickly fill out this poll, which asks you, do you feel from the information I've just given you that you understand more about now how people in the workplace can be helped? So on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being, nope, you haven't helped me at all, not in any way, shape or form, or 10 being, wow, oh my gosh, I have learned so much in this 30 minutes. Could you please enter a result on the poll right now? That would be really helpful. And then please feel free to start putting your questions into the chat. If you are able to, please use your reactions to raise your hand if you have a question. That would be fantastic. If not, please just unmute yourself. If you're unable to use the reactions, that's absolutely fine. If you can raise your hand, fantastic. If not, then I'm more than happy to open the microphone now and let you speak. Over to you with any questions or comments you might have. Jessica, over to you.
Oh, sorry, I might have missed this. You might have said it actually. So when you apply for the grant, if that all goes forward and you get what you need, does that just continue every 12 months?
So it's awarded to you for 3 years as a package of support. You have to undertake using the support within the first 6 months of the award being allocated, otherwise it closes. And typically then, if they say they review it on an annual basis, but I have yet to come across, in all of the hundreds of cases that we've worked with, I've yet to come across someone that has been reviewed if it is awarded for 3 years. What happens then at the end of the 3 years, you should get notification within 12 weeks of the end of the award to then renew it. But access to work can be updated and changed and moved at any time. So if the award isn't working, you can go back to them and ask for it.
Yeah, it's for my own personal situation. I've actually just left a job that, had I have known about it, would have made a big difference.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry to hear that. You're not
No, it's okay, particularly the job aid, because for me personally, you've actually mentioned my condition, which was fibromyalgia, but obviously it can affect you cognitively as well. So sort of remembering things and so forth. So like the job aid, I just think that's incredible. I mean, that package though, you referred earlier to sort of PIP. Sorry if anyone else wanted to talk.
That's fine.
I've just chatted on. You referred earlier to PIP and that process, which I know clearly not for myself actually, because I'm also a carer as well. Is there a chance that this grant could end up being quite an arduous process and you'd end up sort of fighting for it? Because obviously I think most of us get sick of fighting for these sorts of things as well.
Yeah, I would love to lie and say, no, it's an absolute breeze. It isn't always. I've got a current staff member that's been waiting 7 months for help and support, which now has had to go to a senior manager because, and that was just down to an advisor not processing it and it not being put back through the system. So it's taken time. Most cases, I would say, if we get it right in the application stage and you get a decent advisor, I wouldn't say you don't need a brilliant one, you need a decent one. It can be through within weeks. And if we give them as much information as they need, it'll be through within weeks. I'm going to pop down to the chat and I saw something coming up. Okay, so Hannah's asking, if you are looking for your first employment but haven't yet had any interviews, at what point do you apply? Hannah, that's a really good question. I would say that being aware of how it can help you and what support you think you would need based on the job that you're thinking of doing would be a good exercise to do while you're looking for work. As soon, if you need help for interview stage, your potential employer, if they are working within the Equality Act, should be asking you if you need any reasonable adjustments before you are shortlisted, when you are shortlisted for interview, not before, when you are shortlisted for interview. They can, normally in your offer for an interview, you'll be asked if there's any reasonable adjustments that need to be made. And that is when you can get interview help right there. If you are thinking about a full package of support getting into work, as soon as you get your job offer, your process can start, so that typically most employers will give you 4 weeks with a start date, and that would give you enough time to get things in place as long as everything lines up. So I won't put in I'll put the caveat in, if everything lines up, but hopefully that helps answer your question. Feel free to come back in the chat or to unmute if you'd want to come back with any further question on that. Any other questions? Everybody's silent. Does that mean I've done a good job, or does that mean I've baffled everyone? Who knows? Okay, if there's no more questions, I've got thumbs up, I've got claps, happy the day. I love a clap and a thumbs up. That means people have done what they need and they've got what they need. So our team are going to be sending out information to you so that you have that basic guide on what Access to Work can and should be doing for you. And also the contact information of our support team, which is totally free of charge if you would like help and support to undertake the application process. We will walk with you hand in hand, absolutely no cost to you or to your employer if you would like help and support from, I guess we'd like to call ourselves experts, although the last couple of weeks they have been trying my patience at DWP. But welcome to the madness. Hopefully we could help you to eliminate some of that. Thank you so much for your attendance today. Can't believe how many of you are on the call. This is fantastic. Hopefully that's really helped and will help you to get the help and support you need, either as an employer or as someone going into the workplace. So have a great rest of the day. I know that the team will ask me to say that if you have a link just for each session, it's the same link. So just come back a few minutes before 12 if you're going to be part of the Disability Confidence session. But thank you so much to everyone for today. Thank you, Nathan, for organising everything and running it so efficiently. And I will hopefully see you all soon. Take care.
Yeah, thanks, Laura.
Brilliant. Thank you all.